Hello and welcome back. Going to continue on with this look at animations. Not necessarily call it a tutorial, just me kind of messing around with animations and seeing what I can do in Blender and joining all parts together, and why not bring you guys along and you can maybe get something from it, I guess. So if we switch over, which I seem to keep forgetting to do, so you can actually see what the hell's going on here, and you end up with an hour-long video of ShyWizard on the screen. No use to nobody. So I've actually brought it back into Blender because when I've done this like the fourth time already now, I was messing around trying to get it all working, and I crossed my mind that because this is my center point here where it actually gets placed on the map, if the terrain isn't 100% level, may end up with some areas where it's going to be a little bit floaty. And obviously you can use the Terraform tool in-game, but that to me is a little bit glitchy. If you've placed an object with collisions already, the Terraform tool then won't allow you to smooth the terrain anymore, because it's going to collide with collision masks and meshes and all number of different things. So unless you've completely leveled the area out first before you place the gate, you might run into problems, and even then it might not work properly, the terraforming tool. I've had some hit and misses with that at the moment, with where it will allow me to do things and other places it won't even let me touch it. So yeah, anyway, moving on. I've extended these out a little bit so that hopefully that's going to avoid any issues there if the terrain is not 100% level, at least. But whatever, it might work, might not, we'll see. Everything else works still. Animations are all still in place, all the rest of it. And again, these were just to show you how to work with keyframes and timings and all the other sorts of things like that to get a better understanding of how animations will work. Because like I said before, you want your slide lock here to do its job before the gate starts doing its job. But then you want everything to move together and all the other goodness. So we're going to get this out into an i3D. I've created a folder here already, FS19 metal double gate with my textures. So we're just going to go File, Export, Giants i3D. You can see here I've done it a couple of times already, so it's got the name in there. But each time I have done it while recording, it's not quite worked the way I wanted it to. So to save some time, I've just fixed stuff and then started all over again, because it's just going to be a 5-hour video of mistakes otherwise, which is not really what I want to be doing here. I want to just show you how it works. Not errors can be a good thing. But if you've got 5 hours of errors, that's just ridiculously stupid, in my opinion. So we've now got this out of here, so let's close all that down. Don't need that for now. So we'll double click on the i3D and we'll open this up in Giants Editor. First thing we want to do is fix the warning, because I don't like to work with warnings or errors. There's no point, in my opinion, continuing forward with what we're going to do, changes here, with a warning or an error in the console, because that potentially could be problematic later on down the road, and we would have to start the whole process again just because we didn't fix this at the beginning of the session here. So to get rid of that, we just go File, Save As, highlight our i3D we just created from Blender or the i3D exporter or whatever. We're going to click on our save type here as binary i3D. We're going to go save. It's going to want to know if we want to replace it or not. We're going to go yes. Close down the editor. We now have our shapes file. Unfortunately, the Blender exporter, or the i3D exporter for Blender, I should say, doesn't give us a shapes file. I believe the one for Maya, whatever the hell it's called, does. But we have to use the Giants editor, or those of us that use Blender have to use the Giants editor to get this part, which is fine. It works. It's just a bit of a kind of way of doing it, in my opinion, but whatever. We get what we need at the end of the day. I guess that's the most important part. So we're going to open this again here in the Giants editor, and now we can have a look at our gate and mess around with some textures. So another thing you may notice straight away, this is really, really shiny. Even though I actually applied all of the textures in Blender, the i3D exporter again can't quite understand what I'm asking it to do, and it forgets it ever had a gloss map on it. So we need to reapply that here in Giants editor. So we're going to open up the material editing window, and we'll just have a quick look. So our diffuse in the right place, our normal's in the right place, but it's forgotten it ever had a gloss map. So we're going to apply that, which is basically our specular. So we're going to do like so. And now we have all of our textures in the right places, and they are looking pretty good. Excellent. So the next thing then we want to do is set up our scene graph with all the appropriate parts to make everything work. We can't just go with what we've got here because everything is separate, nothing structured together. And because this is going to be animated, we need to separate certain parts. So only certain areas will be animated, and other parts will just be literally a physical object and nothing more. So I can actually close that down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a transform group first of all, and we'll just name this metal gate. That'll do. Metal gate. Now for placeables, the actual save ID is generated in the XML itself, so it's not quite so important. What have we got going on here? Oh, nothing. That's not important. So sorry about that. What was I saying? XMLs as a placeable, the save ID is generated in the XML itself. But if you're importing an animated object into the map and using the animated object or animated map object script, the actual save ID is created by the main transform group name within the scene graph. So it's important to name them correctly, but it's not quite so important when it comes to the placeable side of things, because that save ID, as I say, is generated in the actual XML itself. So I'm going to basically take everything and cut it with Control X and put it in my new transform group with Control V. And because I've set all the origins up correctly in Blender, nothing shifts from where it was before. It'll all be put back exactly the same place. So that's really, really great. Then we're going to create a couple more transform groups. So I'm going to create two more. We'll take this one and cut it and paste it into there. And then I'm just going to name this gate and this one gate. Now, the way that things tend to work with animations and things like that, and the way you have to separate things, it's all done by these transform groups to kind of separate parts from other parts, so that only the parts you want animated are the only parts that are animated. Otherwise, you'll have the posts rotating and all sorts of different things going on. So you need to create all of these additional transform groups and then kind of split everything up and place it in the right order. So we're going to take our gates and put those into this transform group. So now they are completely separate from our posts altogether. There's nothing there that can interfere with any of that. So any animation that's created on our gates, the post will not be affected by it in any way. So what we want to do next then is actually make these rigid body. We want to have it where they are physical objects in the game, so we can't actually drive through them or walk through them or whatever else. So we're going to come over here and make it a rigid body. We don't need a clip distance that high, so I'm going to reduce that down to say 500. Because these are just static posts, they don't do anything, they're just there for visual, we're going to leave it at static, collision, FF, collision mask. So pretty much everything that hits it will collide with it and won't go through it. Fantastic. We want to have some sort of shadowing, so we're going to cast shadow and receive shadow, and make sure tangents is ticked. Sometimes Blender or the exporter from Blender will add this, and other times it won't. So just make sure that's ticked, because otherwise it will possibly give you errors. It's a bit hit and miss. I've had errors and I haven't had errors, but I like to just tick it anyway. It's got something to do with the way the new modeling and materials are all set up and different things, so just have it on anyway. And then we'll do the same with these ones. So our gate, rigid body, and we'll do 500 on clip distance. And then this one here, we're going to change it from static to kinematic. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but because it's a moving object, it needs to be set up under this particular rigid body type. If you leave it on static, it will cause some problems. Collision mask is fine at FF, that's okay. And we'll do the same with our slide lock. So again, Rigid body, this one I think we'll set at 250. It's a much smaller object, doesn't need to be visible from halfway across the map, excuse me. And then we'll do the same, so kinematic, everything else there can stay the same. One thing I will do for the gate itself is again activate or make it so it has the capability of casting and receiving shadows, and again make sure your tangents is on. The slide lock tangents, again make sure that's on or ticked, but the shadows I'm not going to be too fussed about. I don't think that it's that important to have such a small object cast and receive shadows. At the end of the day, every time you make something cast or receive a shadow, it's something extra that the game's got to do. So, you know, if it's small enough that like that it's not really going to matter that much, I would probably say it's best to not have it set to cast or receive shadows. That's just my opinion, but work with whatever go with whatever works for you. So next one, again, rigid body, and we'll make this 500. You might want to go up or down a little bit on that, up to you. And again, kinematic, cast and receive shadows, much larger object, and I would expect to see some sort of shadow from a gate, especially when it's one that opens and closes. If it's a static object just for decoration, maybe not so much, but as this is going to be animated, hopefully when it's finished, I would like it to have some sort of shadowing activated when it opens and closes, and whatever else. And again, make sure your tangents is on. And then our slide lock gate, or slide lock doodr thingy, whatever, 250. So rigid body 250, and again kinematic, tangents, but leave the shadowing off. In my opinion, it's not really required. Okay, so we've got that pretty much set up where we are now, but we need to obviously set up some sort of trigger so that the game will know when we walk into that trigger and press the appropriate button combination, it's going to activate our animation. So we do that by creating a primitive. First of all, I'm going to save where we are, so we'll just click save, and we're going to go create primitive cube. I'm going to cut that with Control X, click on the gate transform group, Control V, and we want to move this up above everything else. Not really required as such. You can set the actual node for the trigger in your XML, but I always like to have it at the top here. It seems to be the way it's done, so we'll just go with that. That's fine. We're going to rename this to trigger. Rigid body, doesn't matter about the clip distance because this is going to be a non-visible object anyway. Rigid body, tab, static is fine, but we want to make sure it's selected as a trigger. Our collision mask needs to be set to 20 and 21 for our avatar, our in-game character, or whatever you want to call that person, so that when that person walks into the trigger, it activates the correct collision mask to then recognize whatever it is and all the rest of it. Non-renderable, distance, blending, everything else there can stay as it is. That's fine. Yeah, and that's good enough. And then what we want to do is just basically make this big enough so it covers the area of the gate. So we'll just do like so. We'll just bring it up a little bit. If you can't quite see what you're looking at, you might want to, for a brief moment, make it renderable so you can see it in its entirety, and then move it into the appropriate places and scale it accordingly, like so. Up to you. And then we'll just bring it out to a fair amount. We don't want to have the gate constantly smacking us in the face every time we open and close it. So perhaps maybe, that kind of size is what we want. So we'll go with that, and we'll make it non-renderable again. There we go. Fantastic. So now we wouldn't be able to see the trigger in game, but it will be there, and we can then activate that with the appropriate key combination. Excellent. So we should have some sort of setup now in our scene graph. So we'll go ahead and save again. We'll close this down for now because the next thing we need to work with is some XMLs. There are several different mods around that you could potentially take what you need from and then adapt accordingly. But at the end of the day, everything we need is in our installation folder for FarmSim, and we can just take it from there and work with it that way if we so choose to. So we're going to the FarmSim installation folder here. And if I go into the SDK folder, maps, mod desk is in here if we want to use this one. There's one in DE and one in US. So if we want to ever get hold of a mod desk, this is potentially a way of doing it. If it's perhaps maybe a placeable mod that I'm editing, I might actually create the placeable mod from Giants Editor, use the new mod from game, create the mod itself, and then adapt things accordingly. But otherwise, I will do it this way because I can literally just drag and drop. The other thing I want to work with is a couple of things here. We need to find a suitable placeable with the right class name and everything. So I'm going to use the sandcastle. It's just a decorative object with no other functions to it, but it will serve a purpose. So I'm going to copy that one over as well. And then also we need to work with a placeable that has animations on it. And the only one I know of is the animal husbandry. So we can work with the cow husbandry. So we'll copy that one over as well. Close that down. Okay. So we'll do our mod desk first of all. We don't need anything to do with maps because we're not working with any kind of map. We're also going to take the icon and the multiplayer equals true and put that up the top. It's just a personal preference. I prefer it up there than down the bottom. Because the sample maps are old, we need to change the desk version to 43. I'm going to put my name in here like so. I'm also going to change this to 1.0. Don't need all them zeros on the end of it. Title, going to keep it straightforward and simple. So we'll just do metal double gate like so. And then I'm just going to literally take that and copy it and put it into the description. Not going to get into the translations. Don't really care about that side of it as at this point. Just get everything working. That's fine. Translations can come later. So we'll just go with that. That's fine for now. The other thing I need to do, if we go back into the installation folder, and this is one thing I nearly always forget to do. It depends on how I create the mod, or the mod desk. Mod desk, because I've taken this from a map, it by default wouldn't have store items in it. But if I create a new mod from game, it will put a store item tag and correct, a setup of some kind in it for me. So if I do it this way, sometimes I can forget that needs to be there. But if you do, then if you do need it, then you can just come into your farm sim installation file data. If we go into maps, in here there is a store items XML. So all you need to do here, what I do is just copy the entire chunk. And we'll just paste it into here like so. Close that one down, and I can just delete what I don't need because I only want one line here. I don't need anything else. So let's put that down there, and we'll just tab these across like so. Clean it up a little bit. Go ahead and save that, and then this will be the XML that I'm going to create shortly. So let's close that down. Then close that down. So sandcastle, we're not going to obviously have it called sandcastle. So what we're going to do is overwrite this, and again we're just going to call it metal double gate. Decoration is fine. Decoration. Yeah. So placement size, we need to make this a little bit smaller because this is going to be a gate that we potentially would be putting walls and fences and hedges up against. We don't want it to have a massive placement area because otherwise then that will prevent us from putting other placeables in close proximity to it. So we don't want any of that. We don't need the clear areas or leveling areas or any of that other stuff in this particular case, in my opinion, because it's just going to terraform the terrain into some sort of mad scientist experiment, and whatever you try and put down next won't place properly because of the terraformed terrain. So we'll just get rid of all of that. We don't need it. Okay, so we'll change our price. I think $5.50 is probably good enough for a double gate. I don't know what they cost, but that'll do. We'll get to the icons and all the other stuff later on. I've actually got an image which I've already taken I'm going to possibly work with, so we'll just do that later on. Okay, so we'll save this then, The next thing I want to do then is look at the cow husbandry XML, because we have animations, which is what we need to work with. So we're going to take only the animation stuff, so animated objects to animated objects and everything within. I'm going to make a copy of that and then put that into this XML. I'm going to close that one down, and then we'll just tidy this up a little bit like so. Okay, so what we want to do then is create our save ID, call it whatever you want. Gate 01 is perfectly fine. I'm just going to keep the trend going with the metal double gate, like so. And then, yeah, so what we want to do then is, let's minimize that for now. Okay, so I've got an image here that I took earlier on of the gate. So I've already set it up to 124 by 512. This is probably not right for Giants. If you were to upload to Giants at 124 by 512, it'll probably get rejected, because I believe they like it to be 512 by 512, but I don't really care. I like it at this, so that's what I'm going to go with. So I'm going to switch over to my magic wand, and I'm going to delete all these other parts, just to give it a bit of a transparent background. Again, this is not the greatest image. If you have like Photoshop or whatever else, chances are you could probably make a much better kind of setup, but I only have paint.net, so that's what I'm going to use. So we'll just do what we can here with this. So let's just get rid of all this stuff, like so. I believe there is actually a placeable that you can, or well, kind of a placeable, I guess it's a placeable, I don't really know. But you buy it in the store, and it's made up of a box that you place around a certain object or whatever else, and then you take a screenshot, and then when you actually put the screenshot into paint.net, whatever else, it's kind of a box that's built up of pink, possibly pink or red or something like that, backgrounds. And when you delete those, what you're just left with is your object smack in the middle. I forget what it's called. I think it's on the Mod Hub. Photo box, I think it might be called, or something like that. I've not tried it yet, but it might be quite a good idea, or quite a handy tool to use in game. So you could potentially, if you want to create some sort of store image, you could place your object on the map and then use that photo box to place around it, and then take your screenshot, and that would make it a little bit easier possibly to edit and give you a really nice clean store image. But for now, this is going to do me just fine. That's okay. So I'm going to go File, Save As. I'm just going to call this store underscore metal double gate. I did not want it to be a JPEG, so let's do that again. Store underscore. I need to metal double gate, and we'll save this to change the DDS. Save DXT5 no bitmap. Now what we're going to do is resize this to 512 by 256, and we're going to go File, Save As, Icon. DXT5 no bitmap, fantastic. So we can take both of those, put them into there, and I'm going to take the name from here, and then in this XML I can overwrite all of this with my new store image. Fantastic. Okay, so let's save that one then. The actual mod desk is already set up, not that one. That one with icon as the PNG, so that's fine. We don't need to do anything with that one. We've got everything we need from every other XML, so I can get rid of this the cow husbandry one, and then what I would do is save this one. So we'll go File, Save As, and we'll just call this metal gate dot XML. There we go. So if I close that one down, Metal Gate XML, so we'll just delete that one. We don't need the Sandcastle one now. So I can open up my mod desk and change this, the store item, to Metal Gate XML. So the mod desk will be read by the game. It will get to here, store item XML, Metal Gate XML, which will then load this one, and it will read through all of the store data, give us the ability to place it on the map, hopefully, with these particular placement parameters or whatever, and then we need to just work with the animation and get all that working. Okay, so moving on, let's reopen the i3D here in Giants Editor, and then what we're going to do is set up our animations. So if we look at what we've got already, both of these are set to rotation, and we don't want rotation on the slide lock, we want translation. So I'm going to change this to translation, and we'll make a copy of that and put to there. Then I'm going to make a copy of that one and put down to there, because we need to have the 3 different settings for our slide lock. The actual gate itself is a little bit different because it's just going to open all the way to 120, and then when we close it, it's going to go back to 0. So it'll kind of read it down and then read it up. But we want our actual slide lock here, when it reads it down, we want it to start at 0 and then go to a certain point, and when it reads it up, we want it to start at 0 and then go to a certain point. So you have to have a little bit, it's a bit weird for the slide lock, but the actual gate is fairly straightforward. It's just going to be closed at 0, open at 120, open at 120, closed at 0, depending on which way, whether it's open or closed. It's a bit, yeah, hopefully what I'm going to do next is going to show you a bit more in depth. So we've got a metal double gate as our save ID. I want it to take a little bit longer for the gate to open and close, so I'm going to go to 5. And then if we look at our slide lock, so if we go to, this one's fine. So we'll do this one first. So slide lock, take our index. So we look at the numbers after the n caret or greater than sign, however you want to look at that. So it will be 1010. So we're going to take a copy of that. This is for our slide lock. So we're going to work with this one first. So we're going to paste that into there like so. And then what we need to do is put those numbers, what we've got in our attributes, into our translation. So we've got 0 and then 0.692, and that's going to be negative. And then this one is going to be negative 4.421. So that's where our start is going to be, and it's also going to be our end. So we can basically put that into there like so. And then what we want to do is move this back to its open position. So we're going to move it back to somewhere like that. And this is moving on the z-axis. So we'll take a copy of that, and we then paste that into there. And then this number here can go into there, because the X and the Y never changes. It's only the Z that it actually moves on. And there's the difference from Blender to Giants Editor. The actual Y and the Z are flipped. So this would be, when we looked at this in Blender, it was moving backwards and forwards on the Y axis. In Giants Editor, it's moving on the Z axis, because those are flipped. So just be a little bit careful when you're looking at your different axes. So we've got that one set up, and like I said, the gate itself is just going to be the rotation of 120, which is kind of the standard for most gates, I think. So if we go to our gate, rotation should be always at 0 when it's closed, and then we're going to go to on the Y axis. So again, in Blender it was Z, but now in Giant Editor it's Y. We're going to go to 120 to be fully opened. So what we want to do then is have that at its fullest time period at 1 to be 120, but we want to have a little bit of a break between, like we did in Blender. We want the actual slide lock to do its job first before the gate starts to move. So this is going to be 1, the completion, and then this would be half of that, so we'll just do 50. And then this one here is going to be, is that right? No, that's wrong, sorry, my bad. We want this one to be 0.5. So at 0 it does nothing, and then at 5 it's going to move, and then at completion of 1 it's going to go back to where it was before. I think that's right. Well, we'll test that out anyway. There's a lot to get your head around when it comes to animations, and especially with the differences between Blender and Giant Editor, it can get really confusing. Okay, so we want our slide lock to have completed that before the gate moves, so our gate is not going to move until 10. So at 5 the slide lock will do its job, and then at 10 the gate will start to move, and then because it's going to start at 10 and then get to 100 at completion of 1. So it gives it a little bit of a pause at the beginning here. So we'll just double check that our index is correct. So metal gate, we've got 101. So we need to take that from there and put that into, there. Like so. Okay, so we want to also then set up our trigger. We'll do this part first, then we'll do the other gate in a minute. So our trigger node is going to be 100. So we want to take that number from there and overwrite this one. And we activate that with our hand tool, and we have our positive text to open the gate and our negative text to close the gate. That's perfectly fine. Don't need to change anything there. We do need to change this. So we need to put the dollar in at the front of all of these so it knows where that is, back in the installation folder under the prefab folders and everything else. And our link node here is going to be this one here for our sounds. So we want to take a copy of that one because that's going to be our slide lock. It doesn't really matter if I'm absolutely honest. You can put that against whichever one you want, but this is the first thing that's going to operate our slide lock. So we want to kind of have it making a sound as soon as we start to operate things. So we're going to put that one into there, and you potentially could have this one against your moving gate against this one here, but to be honest with you, again, it's probably not going to matter that much, so I will just go like so and have it across all of them. And then what we're going to do is we'll make a copy of this. So we're going to copy all of the parts here and the keyframes like so, make a couple spaces, and then we'll paste that into there like so. And then we'll move on to the next gate. So this one then is going to be slide lock. So we need to match these. So if we come back into here, we'll minimize that down a little bit. So our slide lock here, we've got for our index 1020, so we need to change that 1020, and we've got that is 51 and that is 25. So we can take that and put to there like so, and this number here into there, because the X and Y are never going to change. And then we move our slide lock back to the appropriate position, so something like that. Take our number from there and then put that into here. I think the difference here that on the other one it was a negative, as you can see it moves in a negative because it's moving from right to left, so it's going to the negative. but this one is moving from the left to the right, so it's a positive. So just make sure that you're aware of that, because that's a really easy mistake to make, which I've already done there because I've left the negative in place on both of those. You just need to be a bit careful with that, otherwise it will really freak out and do some weird things. But that should be okay. And then our gate itself, so if we go to the gate, we have got 102, so we can just change the end number there, 102, and we start at a rotation of 0. In this particular case, the other one was plus 120, and this is going to be negative 120 instead. So all we need to do here is just put a negative in front of that one there, like so, and then save it. And we should be somewhere very close now. So we have our animated objects set up, hopefully. We've got our metal double gate. We've got our function of decoration. This is just the information that's going to be displayed in the store page. We've set up our store image, price, and all the other parts there. It's placeable. I need to change this as well. We don't want to load in a sandcastle, so we're going to go like so, and then overwrite this with my i3D. Whoops. So we'll just paste that into there like so. Metal double gate.i3d. Apologise if you can hear the dog in the background. Freaking out again. Animated objects, metal double gate, duration of 5, whatever the hell that is, in Giants Editor numbers. And then translation and rotation for each of the slide locks and gates, and then our trigger node and our sounds all linked into the appropriate parts. Fantastic. So we're going ahead and close that down. Let's do that, and we'll save that. Should have everything, I believe, set up now in the right places. Well, we'll test that out. It should be right, so we'll see what happens. So let's close that then. Hopefully this time I've got it right. So let's open up the mods folder. We'll pop that into there like so. Then we'll go into game and we'll just see what happens. And I'm definitely going to have to get a drink shortly for my throat completely breaks and dries up. And OBS, fantastic, but it freaks out when it switches from display capture to game capture. You probably don't notice it, but on my end I have to wait for it to catch up. Okay, so good sign. It is showing up in our mods list. Metal double gate version 1. Fantastic. So we'll then see what that does. Hopefully we'll be able to purchase it in game. Let's see what happens. So go into the store, decoration, and metal gate. There we go. 550 by. Let's just see if we can actually place this somewhere. There will do. And place. Fantastic. So let's just see if it works. Okay, looking good so far. Let's get rid of that. So we have open gate, slide locks, gates open, all the sounds, and the gates open. Fantastic. We can't move through any of this stuff. It is all collidable. So that's great as well. So I'll come round and you can see I've made the trigger quite big, so you have plenty of time to press the trigger or press the appropriate key combination, and the gate then does its job. So not too bad, not too bad. You know, it's doing what it's meant to do, I guess. It's opening and closing. The slide locks are all working. Yeah, how to get an animated object all set up as a placeable. And like I said before, you know, where it's placed here on the ground, it's relatively level, so it's put it, you know, really nice. But possibly if I was to, I don't know if it will let me because I probably don't own the land, but I can probably purchase it if I need to. Yeah, let's purchase this bit up here. So let's get some money. That should do. So let's purchase that and just see what it looks like if it's up against the thing there. You know, you probably wouldn't never want to do this, to be honest with you. Have it, because it's going to clip into the ground, as you can see there. So it's probably not going to work very well. So if I place that there like so, it's obviously not going to really do it justice, because it's going to be literally, you know, in the ground. But the idea was that these parts here, if it was slightly uneven ground, not like a freaking mountain, then it would give you a little bit of leeway on where to place it. But you would generally, I would say, want to use the terrain, whatever it's called, this thing here, the landscaping tool, to smooth out the area before you actually do place it. And if we look in the console, we've got no errors, so fantastic. I'm ShyWizard. Thanks very much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.